record this meeting because I know there were some folks who asked me to. They couldn't make it tonight, and I've been recording these things and putting them up on YouTube after the fact. So thanks everyone for making the time. I do appreciate it. You know, obviously we're still kind of stuck in a difficult situation. You know, the reality of things is not great, but we're still trying to plod forward with some plans, both for the class and with respect to some events. What I'm hoping to do tonight is provide some background, some context, and I sent the letter out this afternoon mainly because I wanted people to have a sense of what our thinking was ahead of the meeting. For some folks, that was enough, and I get it. And then for other folks, it was, well, wait, we've got some ideas. And for some folks beyond that, it was, all right, now I have even more questions. So hopefully today we'll clear up some of those questions, clear up some of the ambiguity that's out there. And please know that everything that we're doing right now really is not happening in a vacuum. We are in a lot of communication with a lot of folks just outside of Uxbridge that has made, in some ways, made our decision making easier. In other ways, has really complicated it. So my hope, again today, is to clarify some things, give an idea as to where some of our solutions are, and hopefully by the end of it be able to answer questions. I am gonna use the chat function. I'll come back to questions at the end. I know Mr. DeMeglio has said he'll keep an eye on them. If there are quick answers, he could certainly respond to them right in the chat function. But I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen, and we'll get this underway here. So first of all, the reality of where we're at, we want to share a little bit of what guided our decision making, because this has been, without question, the heaviest lift of my career. I have been doing this for 19 years, and I have never in my life encountered anything quite like this. I don't think there is anybody who really has. So what we've done is we're going to give some things that we know about for sure. First of all, the last day of classes for seniors is going to be May 15th. That was supposed to be their last day before all of this, and then the week of the 18th through the 22nd was supposed to be their exam week. They will not have exams, but the week of May 18th to 22, we're thinking of it as an exam week. So if there are students who need to make things up, if there are students who have things that they're still preparing for, like AP tests, that week becomes theirs. There is no new function, no new work, no anything. So essentially, a week from tomorrow will be their last day of class. That's the last due date. It's the day last things are going to be handed in. And if there happen to be things that extend beyond that, it's because people have their own extensions that they need. Beyond that, Governor Baker extended the stay-at-home order till May 18th. I was in touch this week with a number of folks from Boston, the legislature, and the executive office, which is tied to Governor Baker. He is under significant pressure to reopen everything. I think everybody knows that. If you watch the news, you know that. But the stay-at-home order is extended until May 18th, and the word that I have gotten is that unless there is a significant decline in what has been happening, it could extend longer. Massachusetts is now third most cases in the nation, more than 4,000 deaths. I thought we had turned the corner 2 days ago when the number was 88, and then yesterday it was over 200 again. So things are not safe quite yet. One of the things that has been really important to me and to the class, to the advisors, and I think to our school community as a whole, is we wanted something that would allow everyone to participate. We didn't want something in terms of a graduation or a prom or senior events that would intentionally leave some people out. And the other thing that I've really been trying to maintain is not something that is entirely virtual. And I think one of the things that came out this week from several of my colleagues is that their program is going to be entirely virtual, meaning everything is pre-recorded and the kids have their diplomas mailed to them. To me, that was not really an option. It could end up being our only option, and that scares me. So I'm trying to find solutions that are not entirely virtual, knowing full well that schools around us are very much considering that as their only option. The other piece of this was we went to feedback. The feedback was really helpful, and thanks for everybody. I'm going to share some of it in a minute to those who gave us a sense of what their interests were and what their interests could have been. We heard from about 60 parents. We heard from about half the class. And we did use that in supporting our decision making. I'm not going to go through every question. There were some things that obviously emerged as priorities that were more of a priority than others. And there were some suggestions in the comments that I found incredibly helpful. So those of you who made some of those comments are out there, I just want to say thank you because it really, really was incredibly helpful. Namely, at this point, we've considered a lot of scenarios, and this isn't me. This isn't me in a room all by myself. This is me. This is Mr. DeMeglio. This is some central office. This is the Board of Health. This is public safety. This is the state. This is the state house. There's about 50 of us principals that are going through this on a regional level. We're trying to make the best of a situation. We're not looking for anybody to suggest, well, what if we try this or what if we try that with this kind of Chinese menu approach? We'll take something from this column and then we'll take something from that column. That's not really what we think we want to do. I completely understand that there are a lot of strong feelings and opinions out there about what is best or even the state of where we're at with this pandemic. But we are basing the decisions on reality and safety from public health, not anybody's emotions, and certainly not my own emotions, which Mr. DeMeglio will tell you I've had to keep in check at times over the last few weeks. And that's not anger, that's just sadness. It is not, it's been hard because there have been times where we've had to be each other's voice of reason, and I want you to know that. We're managing disappointment for ourselves, for our seniors, for their classmates, for their families. And understanding that what we're trying to do, I really hope people understand what we're trying to do is truly find something that is best and best fit for Uxbridge, because nothing we come up with is going to be perfect. When I hit send today on the email, I acknowledged to myself, sitting in this office by myself, I said, well, I've just managed to really upset at least half of the people. And then there are probably another half of the people who said, okay, well, at least we know where things are at, but I'm not happy about it. Because I don't think anybody is happy about where we're at. And I think that's real, and that's visceral, and that's something we all feel. We considered, among some of the options, the drive-in at the drive-in. You've seen, some people have seen a drive-in option. I want to say that is still on the table, but they have not had any updates in the past couple of weeks. I'll come back to this in a few minutes. And there's no guarantee that that could be approved. Now, today the governor did agree to open up golf courses, and that may change things socially for some places that can guarantee distance, but we're not sure. They're not open, and at last look, their hope was to open June 1st, right around Memorial Day time. Some people had suggested the turf field. Some people have suggested using fields in the center of town, McCluskey and Whiten. And, it's funny, I have reached out to college stadiums. I've reached out to other facilities, the drive-in on 146. Most of them aren't open, and most won't guarantee opening. And the colleges and universities where we could spread out have said, we're not open for our own sort of affairs. We're not going to be open for yours. And they've been very polite about it, but that's just reality. And places like the DCU Center are field hospitals. The UMass Dartmouth, which a couple of my colleagues on the South Shore South Coast have been we're going to use because they have these expansive parking lots and a giant gym facility. It's a field hospital right now. So there's some of the statistics. Graduation being held as an in-person ceremony, overwhelmingly, something that people felt was important, both students and parents. And again, in person, I think to me meant not something where I'm broadcasting congratulations to the graduates and reading names from a computer. Having some level of in-person connection, and trying to do the best we can with that. Similar to that, graduation, overwhelmingly the most important event for a lot of folks. Or not the most important, but of having significant importance. With that was also the prom. You can see the numbers for prom were a little less important. The top one is the parents, the bottom one is the students. The reality is with prom, we're not cleared to have gatherings of more than 10 people right now. So that makes prom really hard. And some of the things that we're getting from our public safety partners is that gatherings of 200 people may be prohibited up to and including the fall. So we didn't want to make a promise about prom that we couldn't keep. And I've been pretty clear about that since the beginning. I think our goal has always been postpone. And we're almost at the point where we have to shut the window on that. We also asked, and this is just parents, when they would prefer graduation to take place. And you could see the highest two numbers were, end of June, or really will make any date work. We have since found out that there are some students who will report to college, provided that the colleges are open, as early August. There are kids who will be shipping out to the military as early August. And so that closes a window for us pretty quickly on when we could do this if we wanted to have everybody present, especially students who have things outside of their control. From an emotional standpoint, there comes a point in time where we almost felt like saying, okay, we have to move on at some point and start thinking about 2020-21. And so we really focused on the upper half of this survey, meaning June and July, because August didn't really seem to be an option. And then there were some folks who said, there was one person who said, mid-July, anytime but July 5th through 19th. And I didn't ask why, but that came up. So our challenges with waiting longer, I'm going to go through them. We have 6. 1, 2, and 3, I just went through the equity piece. I'm not sure about the safety piece for those who have medical conditions. And there are some people in our class who will still face restrictions due to some compromised health conditions. And I don't know when the social distancing guidelines are going to be lifted. When we're talking about what we're looking at for returning to school in the fall, I'm not sure if it's going to be any better in July or August, and certainly not in June. We also had to look at the financial impact, and our fiscal year closes on June 30th. Some folks have said, well, you've saved money in some places while being out of the building. That's true, but our year closes on June 30th. And so we have a really hard time. Our budget was just passed for next year, meaning after July 1. And now that's facing some obvious tightening, both at the town and state levels, because there's been no Q4 revenue. We've all been home for a couple of months, and there hasn't been a lot of taxes being collected on sales and meals. So the idea of adding another expense to next year isn't particularly feasible. And it does create some consternation with ordering things for graduation that we order before June 30th, but don't own technically until after June 30th. It's just one of those legal things. I have asked the commissioner's office if there will be any latitude on the June 30th fiscal year restrictions. I've not yet gotten an answer. It's coming up in our administrators meeting with him on next Tuesday. So hopefully I'll get some answers. In terms of future planning for us at the school, when August rolls around, we're into next year. And that's just reality. And there's a lot of speculation about whether the summer is going to slow this down or stop it. And I really am afraid of waiting too long and then ending up with nothing. We have, again, considered health of class, families, staff, community. There are people that are on this call right now that I know have compromised medical conditions, without getting into too much detail. And, I don't want to put them in a position where they're choosing between their health and participating in graduation. With respect to prom, in the traditional sense of a junior senior prom, we have between anywhere 250 and 350 people at the prom every year. There's no way, there is just no way that's going to happen. We have held a date for the end of July with our venue in the hope that we might be able to host something. We can leave it open as an option, but the likelihood is greater that it would be a senior event and a junior event, not a senior event with a junior event. So class of 2020 has something, class of 2021 has something. We're not sure about guests. We're not sure about numbers. But the data that we've been given, the direction we've been given so far, is not to expect an event with more than 200 people, especially one without any distancing measures whatsoever. We know this is what the students want. Believe it or not, while the prom is one of those things that makes me incredibly nervous and I'm up all night afterwards worrying about what's going on, we look forward to it too. And so this was one of the hardest decisions for us to make by far. And it's not necessarily, again, the window is closing, but it's not locked. We just we're not wanting to make a promise we can't keep. And that's the reality of prom. That doesn't mean that the class can't do something after, everything settles. It just means that what it is right now is probably not what it will be, or what it has been is not what it will be. So the three things we know we can plan, we can plan for the awards night, we can plan for materials pickup, and we can plan for graduation. The awards night is something that we are going to do entirely virtually. And, the awards night is something we're going to do that is virtual. We're going to conduct it as a virtual production. Think of like the NFL draft. They did that entirely virtually. It will not be just me talking into a camera for an hour, reading off a bunch of names. We will do something more creative than that. And we'll release it on a certain day to Uxbridge Cable and via an internet link, a YouTube stream if we have to, a Facebook Live. We're working out the details on that. It will be done prior to cap and gown distribution, because what we want to do is compile all of the things the students have earned and put them in with the cap and gowns when we distribute them. The one challenge we have with cap and gown distribution, and again, this pushes into graduation planning, is we are at the mercy of a factory, and we're at the mercy of a warehouse that is not fully staffed right now. And we're not the only school that's waiting on this, but we are truly kind of in a holding tank as far as when those materials will be done. Some people have said, well, is there a way you can have the class present and nobody else in the auditorium and still do? And again, we don't know if at the end of May we'll be able to have 100 people present in one place. So we are planning on doing that virtually. So we maintain it. Now, with respect to graduation, we can work some of those honors into graduation and announce them there, so that there's a little bit more to it than just a virtual production. For distribution and drop-off, we are hoping to do this on May 29th, giving every senior family a predetermined time to come. And we will give out yearbooks to those who've ordered them. We'll give out the department medals, the awards, the clubs, the honor cords, scholarship letters. We have the students file their records that we will hand over. We usually do that at graduation rehearsal. And we'll collect the iPad. With respect to the iPads, we will be sending out a link to the class about how to wipe it and make it, basically empty. Before you do that, I know there are some seniors on this call. Please make sure we're going to send you directions on how to port your Google Drives. You might not ever look at those files ever again, but you just may. So there's a way to export into a different, it's called a Google Takeout. We will give you instructions to how to do that. And if you want to keep it, or it's busted and you just want to be done with it and don't want to pay to fix it, it's $25. One fee for everybody. And that'll be that for the iPads. But if you're turning it in, it's turned in, wiped and functional with the charger. So to bring us to the graduation options, we are looking to push it to the end of June for a few reasons. One, it buys us more time. Whether we're on site or not, there is no real likelihood that if we keep it on May 31st, that it can be anything but virtual at this point. So everyone's aware, graduation does not just happen overnight. It takes some time to plan. It takes some time to organize. It takes some time to construct. Even things like making sure the chairs are just so, and the stage is up, and sound, and cable, and everything else. So we're going to give ourselves more time, and pushing out that window may give us more latitude if we're able to get it. And I'm going to go through that as part of this. So far, Mr. D'Amelio, anything I gotta pause on? Are we good?
No, I think we're good. If you want to just pick up one question real quick, we talked about the picking up of materials, students going to lockers and whatnot. I think we'll do that later, right?
Yep, that's coming up. That is coming up, I promise. So my hope is by June 19th to be able to make a decision on what kind of ceremony we can have. That gives us a month beyond where we are right now with the governor. And tentatively, let's look at June 27th as one date and June 28th as another. The reason I'm saying the week, we need about a week between June 19th and June 27th to make sure we have everything we need. Now, if we have an indication in that period of time that waiting into July will allow us to have something more traditional, more in person and more personal, we will pull that trigger. However, I'm going to be really clear on this. That doesn't look likely right now. So we have to plan for a couple of other scenarios. And again, I've got the footnote down there in the bottom. We could make additional adjustments come June. Now, if on June 19th, it's looking like we can only do things that are fairly remote and fairly distanced, and we have two options that'll follow, and then we do it on June 27th, and on June 30th, the governor opens the state, that's on me, and I'll own that, and it's a loss. I mean, it's just one of those things. We woulda, shoulda, coulda. Does it mean we can't come back and say, all right, well, now we know we can do something later? We can always do that. But our goal is going to be to try and push this out as long as we possibly can, for however we can. With respect to a drive-in graduation, you've all seen our parking lot. It works out rather well. Having been in touch with some other schools around the country on this, we would have the seniors dropped off, the families proceeding to the student parking lot. We would have a stage outside. We would have a graduation ceremony, trying to keep it as normal as possible. And then post-diploma, we would have everybody on their way. I'm going to be honest. I had a friend who's on a school committee outside of Philadelphia. He and I talked last night. His Board of Health vetoed this. I have not given this to the Board of Health yet. This could count as a gathering of more than 100 people. My pushback has been, as Mr. Catalano mentioned, he went to Lowe's and you have a parking lot and there's 100 people in a parking lot. They're in their cars. That happens at the food store every day. I think we can make a strong case for having something that is outdoors, but I have no promises. As far as the logistics, we were going to do it in the evening. Doing it in the evening allows us to be able to put a screen up. The Mendon Drive-In would, which is an option. I'm going to get into that in a minute. The Mendon Drive-In would be daytime only, and with respect to daytime only, there's no screens. So we don't know if we'll have access to the building. We will have lanes chalked. If you've been into a food store in the last few weeks, you know that there's a lot of things that say you can only walk this way, you can only walk that way. And we will do, obviously every graduate coming across the stage, we will have a stage, we will have audio, we will have video, we will have enough. We have space, we have more space outside than we do inside as far as keeping the seniors with a processional. The questions that we have is that we're not sure if we'll be actually able to do this. If this were May 31st, I would say the answer is no, we won't be able to do this. And I'll be very honest, I'm very concerned about people not respecting any guidelines. People I've been in the food store enough I've been 3 times since we've been out. And each time I've been in, since they've had the lanes chalked, people have said, I'm going whatever way I want. And I worry about that because we're talking about people's health and safety. And I worry that if we say, look, this is how you have to walk, and this is how you can park, and this is how you would go up if you want to take a picture, we just need people to be able to adhere to that. And again, there's no guarantee that it's going to pass muster anyways. We have been out there to measure. We've been out there. We know how many spaces we have. We know how many, we know what we've got. So we think it's an option. We don't know if it's actually going to come to fruition because my next step after sharing this with the families is to share this with our Board of Health. And again, could change after May 18th when the governor extends or pulls back on some of our restrictions. The drive-through is the one that is right now being used actually by more schools than I care to admit. I don't love this option. It's not my favorite option, but it works because it is still not entirely virtual, and it is still gives the calling of every name. It gives every family the moment of the recipient getting his or her diploma. But it is not a crowd, that's for sure. It's not the whole class at once. I will tell you that in my group of principals, this is the way that I would say those that are not virtual, this is what they're doing. They are holding back on saying that it's the only thing they're going to do because they may get the class together later for something, but with respect to getting out diplomas and to giving students that moment of walking across the stage and picking up their diploma and turning their tassel and having their moment, this is what has been proposed and has passed perhaps the most, has gotten the most attention, I would say, from some of my colleagues. It has its pros and it has its cons. It's a predetermined time to come. Again, the building's off limits. It's 1 by 1. We have to have a traffic flow. We have weather considerations that we'll take into account. Perhaps the most important part of this one, while it's going to be, students between this letter and this letter show up, we can video this and we can put it together post-production so that everybody's able to see it. But the reality is it's far more impersonal than a traditional ceremony. This really centers on the recipient of the diploma, and that's pretty much about it. But it's safe, and it's again passing through a lot of principles with a lot of reality to it. And I think part of that is larger classes, schools with larger classes are dealing with this and wondering how they're going to get 400 kids plus their families into one place. So that's one of the things that we're keeping in mind. We did look at the drive-ins. I spoke to them today. I've spoken to them last week. They're still not open. Last week they were toured by a number of state representatives, and I don't know when they said representatives from the state, whether they meant legislators or public health. So don't misquote me on that. They do not have an update. The last message I got was, we're really hoping to hear something by the end of May because of the word about golf courses. So we may be booking something with them that we can't realistically have. Now, could we potentially look at them as an option if they open and have that as a venue? Sure. And I'm not closing the window on that. The difference, the only thing that kind of strikes me is we'd be paying a lot of money for essentially the same experience as our parking lot. That's basically what they'd be giving us, is their parking lot and the FM transmitter so that we can pump the sound into cars. And we could realistically do that at our building. They will not allow it to happen in the evening, and it would be rain or shine. And when I say rain or shine, I mean, unless it's a hurricane, we would be having it there. Whereas if it's at our site, we have at least some control to move things around. Again, not ideal and not cheap. And again, if we're looking at costs, I do want to say some folks have been awesome and extremely generous and willing to contribute to that. I feel very funny with asking seniors to pay for their own graduation. I also know that $13,000, if this falls into next year, is a real challenge given what we know about the fiscal situation going into FY21, and that's just me being honest about it. I'm not trying to, bemoan where we are budget wise, because I think we're in pretty good shape.
Well, you don't want to.
No, I don't want. No, I don't. I don't.
Sorry, somebody got unmuted in there somewhere. So when will we make a decision? Well, you've seen it that our drop dead date is probably going to be somewhere around June 19th. And again, prior to that, is there a possibility we could come up with a different scenario? Maybe. But this is where we are right now. And again, we need people to feel what they're going to feel. I've been losing sleep. I know people out there will say, well, you want to be principal of a school, you deal with the decisions. I will tell you that this has not been an easy process for any of us. But we need to feel what we're going to feel, whether it's sadness, whether it's anger, whether it's disappointment, whether it's, okay, I can make peace with this, whatever that is. I know not everyone is going to be happy or satisfied. And if we're looking at other venues or other solutions, I think people by now know that we're going to communicate that out as soon as we can. We really are looking at a whole lot, and I am praying, as to whatever deity you pray. I hope you join me in that prayer, that we're at the other side of this, and that in 3 weeks we've had that miraculous turn that we need so it can be more normal for all of us. That's what I want more than anything. And I can't say that any more sincerely, not just for me selfishly. It's about the kiddos at that point. It's about the senior class. It's about you and about your families and about our community having some sense of normalcy. And I sincerely mean that. We will be confirming school photographer. We will be confirming UCTV. My understanding is that UCTV will be able to stream any event we determine we're going to host. If we do things drive-through, they'll be able to video it. If we do things drive-in, we'll be able to video it. If we do things that are at a remote site, they'll be there to help, because I know some folks had put, it's really important that we get a number of people to be able to watch graduation live, or to get the same number of folks. Other planned events, we've talked about the parade. We are waiting on clearance from the Board of Health and the police. We will not get that until after May 18th, but we are still planning on having that. And I want to just give a real, the folks from PSG, I know that some of you are here, some of you are not, but to the group as a whole, has really come together to support this class in a different way than any other PSG group ever has had to. They're making banners and signs for the entire class to put out around town. And, I just can't thank them enough for being my eyes and ears and for allowing me to bounce some ideas off of them. And it's really hard as a principal when you're used to being plugged into people every single day to have to try and keep a pulse on things when you're not in town every day and you don't see the kids and you're not in class and you can't go by the cafeteria table and or pop into a math or an English or a history class and say, hey, what's going on? Hey, what do you think about this? Or pull in a couple of your student leaders and say, hey, what do we do? We've been meeting with the class officer, but it's just not the same. So having people who are out there being our eyes and ears, I can't thank them enough. I really can't. So if you're out there, I'm only looking at Mr. DeMeglio and a couple other folks because I'm looking at the screen, the other screen going, thank you. And I sincerely mean that. So I just, in closing, before I go back to the questions, I want you to know that we will do what is right for this class. And if that means we do a pivot on June 15th, we'll do a pivot on June 15th. We know the emotions that people are feeling, and we're trying to balance everything we want with what we know is possible. I think you have my word as a human being, as a parent, as a teacher, and as a principal now that we are going to do whatever we can to do right by this class of 2020. As I shared in my letter, there are some things that we can't replicate. There are some things we hope we can. And it's my hope that as we are apart, that these experiences pull us closer together eventually. And I hope I get an invitation to your 20th reunion and we can laugh about a pandemic. Because right now this hurts. It hurts me. I miss you. And I'll stop there and turn my attention to the questions. I gotta stop the screencast here. Well, there's the last slide. It says questions. All right, let me just get in here. Stop share. Make sure I don't share the wrong screen. And any questions out there, Mr. DeMeglio?
Yeah, we've got a few. I'm trying to get to them all. Can you see them?
I can see them. Yeah, any of those outstanding, thank you, Mrs. Penza. Any of those sort of outstanding things that the school owns, technically, band uniforms, sports uniforms, any of those sort of things that belong to the school, those will get dropped off the same day. We'll give some pretty specific instructions on that. To give you an idea, it's going to be, my guess is it's going to be like, bring it in a bag, the way I used to return my track uniform, tie it up in a little shopping bag, and you'll drop it off, and we'll pull everything in. Thank you for reminding me about athletic uniforms, Mr. Carboni. And we do need police details with anything that we have. And, we do have, these are a lot of thank yous. I think one of the things that we are going to be on hold for, just to be honest, and you're welcome, but there are a couple of other school administrators and leaders and coaches and department leaders in the room. You don't get to pick your problems, so we will solve the problems that are handed to us and do the best we can with them. What I will say, with respect to the why we're putting things sort of in perspective right now, is if we're able to move things to in person at any point, we will. And do we have a date for the Senior Awards virtual event? We don't, and I'll tell you why. We want to do that soon because we know it has an impact on kids' financial aid and maybe even some decisions that they're making about school for this coming fall. So we want to do it sooner, but some of our scholarship patrons have given us a sense that they're running a little bit behind schedule this year. And a couple of them have said that they need a little bit more time to get people together because they're used to getting everybody in a room and making some decisions. And they're not able to do that. And for some of our folks who are not technically savvy, we'll just say, not technologically savvy, trying to schedule the old school, what were they called? Party lines? The old school conference call party line. Sorry, it's before my time. Those are a little bit more challenging. Our hope is that we'll be able to do that like May 27th, May 28th, so that we can distribute that with caps and gowns on May 29th. If we have not had the caps and gowns ordered yet, they're ordered. Sorry, see Mrs. Wise, they're ordered. If we have not had them distributed, Mrs. Wise almost had a heart attack. She has absolutely ordered everything. Heck, she ordered some of it on March 1st. I was getting questions, Mrs. Wise, about what the heck is this order for graduation? You from the business office. I said, because we're taking care of graduation. We've already ordered everything. So if those haven't been delivered yet, we'll put off. It buys us a little bit more time because we want everybody to come once. And there are some schools, believe it or not, that are having people come, pick up their cap and gown, put it on, take a picture, here's your diploma, take care. We're trying to avoid that. We really are trying to avoid that. I think that's about all I've got. If there's anything that I can do that people have as ideas that people feel like we're forgetting, I'm not too proud, but shoot me an email. I'm always answering email more than usual now. And I will be sure to get back to you. And I think that, as we look ahead, I know that we'll do right by this class. I will tell you that I have a young man, I'll leave you with this quick story. A young man who is a senior in college this year, who I had to do an interview with because of my other life as a broadcaster, hence the cool little microphone I've got here. And he's a senior, and he's graduated, and he lost not only his spring season because he was a spring athlete, but he lost he was supposed to defend his thesis, whole bunch of stuff. And they made the announcement at the college that they're bringing back the class of 2020 next year to participate in next year's commencement ceremonies. And I have had that thought as well. Now I understand that the kids will move on, and but man, it would be a nice tradition for us to start with perhaps celebrating a 1-year reunion next year with this class, if that's what it's going to take to get everybody in the building one time together. Mr. Carboni, there's a question there for you about will there be sports awards? I believe you and I are meeting tomorrow at some point to hammer out what that's going to look like. But you're just going to give thumbs up, or you want to talk at all? Your thumbs up? I'm going to unmute you.
Yeah, okay. No, yeah. So tomorrow, Mike and I are going to, we'll talk about that. There will be some type of awards and, on how to give them out and how to, I have some ideas that I want to run by, Mike and Mike, that I think would be great, especially for the seniors. So yes, we will have some sort of sports awards. And we have to, I guess, figure out, a way to get them to everyone. And I'm sure the manufacturing department plant is down. So, again, these are some questions that hopefully will get answered soon. So as soon as we do have some communication, with that, we'll definitely be sending them out for you.
One last thing that is probably not high on anyone's priority list, but where we're ending up classes in the next couple of weeks, take care of students if you're out there. Take care of whatever you can take care of, so that we can make sure that we wrap things up the right way. For those of you who are concerned, some people have said, is this going to be an effect for transcripts and things going off to college? we are already working on what we're going to do about that with our school profile. I see Mr. Barry. I know the other counselors are on this. That is not anything anybody has to worry about. So, last thing I'm going to say, because it is Teacher Appreciation Week, thank you to all of you educators that are in the room. There's a bunch of our teachers who are there. Couldn't be doing this without you. Thank you. And
No way. We couldn't do it without them.
Mhm.
They're awesome. Awesome.
so with that, I guess I'm going to say farewell. Are you raising your hand, Chris Barry? No? Okay. With that, I am going to, I think, sign things off. Say farewell. It's great to see so many people. I think I'm going to take a picture of it so I can tweet out that I had so many wonderful people here tonight. Because all I've been tweeting about lately is nothing really all that fun. It's all been, and I stay off of politics because that's not fun either. Just thank you. Thank you, everybody, for the support. We will do what we can. And I appreciate everyone's time, energy, effort, and patience, most of all. Take care, everyone. Be safe, be healthy, and we'll see you soon. The ceremonial last wave of the Zoom call.
My leave button.
And I'm going to stop recording.